Good evening. This is the Chicago Computer Society meeting for February of the Linux Special Interest Group. Tonight we got a little bit of a hodgepodge. It's a little different than I normally do, but please bear with me. Does anybody have any general questions tonight that we can try and answer?
I
Gee.
have a very general question. We're looking at an application in Linux called Host. Are any of you familiar with it?
Repeat the name.
It sounds like Host. It's spelled the letter Y, the letter U, and then Nohost.
Haven't heard
If you
that
run
one.
it on a server, you can build all sorts of tools to expand the value of your server.
Hmm. Haven't heard that one.
Well, we're likely to play with it, and I'll let you know what we find out.
All right. I do have something that may be of interest, not directly as a whole of your group, but individuals. But we'll get to that later. Uh, I won't ask the next question because I know all of you are using Linux. The other question is for people who are on the fence that haven't decided to either test the waters or just drop out of the group altogether. Anyway, tonight, part of mine's presentation is going to be a little strange in the sense that most users come from the Windows environment. Many are using Windows while learning Linux and how to do many of the same things they do on Windows, which is partly what we've been saying for a long time, along with APCUG and some other Linux groups around the country. So, what I brought up at the South Suburban group last Tuesday was a tool that everybody in Windows knows about, but I found something uh, I didn't expect. I've never read anything about it, but it's a nice little feature for Windows, but you don't have, you have to use third party solutions on Linux, which I haven't done, but I know, I think Bob Premick has done it, and somebody from the APCUG group, Linux for Workshop. So I'm going to see if I can lose my marbles here for a minute. Assuming I can find things. Okay. What we have here is Windows Task Manager for 10. Notice that's in the processes, but I'm going to be clicking on Performance tab. And you
You're
have,
not sharing your screen. There you go.
there is no sound with this. You have the CPU. You got, it's showing that this is a AMD Phonom 2 processor, and down below it's showing it's running at 2.5 gigahertz, one socket, which is normal, four cores, and four logical. The four logical means there's no hyper threading. And so you're only getting the base cores. And then it's showing L1, L2, and this one has an L3.
Tim, we're not seeing the output.
We're
not
not seeing
seeing
what
that.
you're showing.
It says it's sharing.
Yeah, you may be sharing. Are you sharing the whole
Hang loose, hang
whole
loose,
desktop?
hang loose. I'll have to stop sharing.
Yeah, and even if you share the whole desktop, anything that's a menu, pop-up, or drop-down may or may not show up over Zoom. But if it's an application, you can switch to it.
That's too hard. I'm gonna switch viewers anyhow, and put that on hold, and then I'm going to minimize that, try to share again, and we're going to go there, share. Now, do you see anything?
Just you. Went
Well,
black.
I see a
Task
blank
manager.
screen.
this is Task Manager coming up.
Nothing's on it.
I hope
Coming
not,
up. Okay.
because I haven't got it playing yet. This is Task Manager. It comes up usually showing processes. And what I'm going to do, and this presentation's on the second tab, which is performance. It shows the CPU first, usually. AMD off to the right side. It's a Phonom 2 processor. And then it goes down below a little bit, and it's running at 2.5 gigahertz. One socket means there's only one CPU on the motherboard. It's got 4 cores and 4 logical, which means there is no hyper-threading. This one shows virtualization is enabled. And then it shows L1, 2, and 3 caches. The other one I'm going to show you doesn't have an L3. Then right now it's saying that when I did this, only OBS recorder was going at the time, nothing else. It was running about 30% or so, and it had 163 processes, 1900 and plus threads, 85,000 handles, which I don't know for sure what that is. I didn't have time to look it up, and I had been running the system for over 5 days.
Okay, so this looks like the Windows Task Manager.
It is. I said that up front.
Are you on a Windows box there? You're
No,
normally
I'm on Linux. There's a reason for
okay.
my mischievousness.
Get this?
So this is showing the CPU from Task Manager, because a lot of people, like I said, run Windows while they're learning Linux. And you have, Peter, Windows machines.
I know that.
Listen up then.
But
there's a reason for the
I'm
madness.
familiar with Task Manager, but how do you get Task Manager to run on your Linux box?
This is a video I took earlier on the Windows box. Gee, I wonder how.
Hey,
Now it's showing the memory, 16 gigs, but it doesn't know what type it is. It's running at 1333 megahertz. It says there's 4 slots and all 4 are filled. And anything else that's right below that is extraneous. but I have 4.4 gigabytes in use on that machine. I have 11.6 gigabytes available. Then the next line shows 5.4 committed and 19 gigabytes total. Now, how did I get 19 gigabytes? Well, I have 16 gigabytes of real RAM and a 3 gigabyte page file or virtual memory. Therefore, I have 19 gigs technically available. And it's hard to read because I can't enlarge it. Videos cannot be enlarged. At least I haven't found a way of doing it yet. But it says I'm doing about 28% up here of my memory usage, while the CPU's around 32. Now this is pointing out with the white arrow the statistics at the bottom. These statistics give you a good sound idea of what hardware you have in CPU, memory, drives, internet, etc., and how well they are performing. And so far in this demonstration, these were running real good. And I did this video partly because if I do it live, it's going to tax the systems and increase additional problems caused by stretching the resources of the computers too thin. Now, eventually this will switch down to disk 0 shortly. At least I hope it will. These aren't real long videos. I got another one basically the same but for Windows 11. There are changes there. But there's a reason I'm also bringing this, two reasons I'm bringing this up. One is there's something that I've never seen documented in Task Manager that can be a benefit to a lot of folks. And the other has to do with basic hardware of your system. And with all the recent changes with more and more AI, these changes are going to tax our systems to death. And that's not a joke. Come on, I should switch. There we go. Disk 0. It's a Samsung SSD Evo 500 gigabyte. I just last month had to change it because I was outgrowing the 256. And it says down below some various characteristics, but it's got system and paging. Well, normally on you have a C drive on your boot drive, which is also called a system disk, but I also have an E. I made a small partition called E, and that's where I move the page file to. And in a sense, it's mimicking what I do with Linux. And I didn't want to have the page file continue in drive C because of the taxing it takes on C for your running programs plus the page file. So I put the page file into a separate little partition that I can grow in size, but right now it's 3 to 3.5 gigabyte setup on that machine. And I've done it also on this other machine that's running 11. Disk drive 1 is a spinning hard disk. It's used for offloading stuff I don't need to keep on drive C anymore. And that's all its purpose is. It's a Seagate technology drive. And it shows you there ain't anything happening on the drive right now because I'm not moving or copying files to that drive. Next thing is Ethernet. I primarily use Ethernet on these two machines, and it's a gigabit, but I get about 300 to 400 megabits per second, usually. And then next Ethernet, number 2, is strictly for virtual box if I'm running a virtual machine. But on mine, I also have one more category. Well, go down. Come on. There. I have a GPU. That's a discrete video card. Discrete video cards, audio cards, and a bunch of other ones give you hardware acceleration. Now, there's 2 quadrants up there. It's called 3D. It shows a lot of activity. Copying. I'm not copying anything, so nothing shows up. The lower 2 here are for video playback. This is the onboard memory, which is only 2 gigabytes. This is a 10-year-old video card. Because this is a machine that's about 15 years old. So I don't need anything newer. Down below, the last category down here, the system is reserving 8 gigabytes of my 16 if needed, if I'm doing something that overtaxes the 2 gigabyte RAM on the card. And that can be very important. The highest card I have is 4 gigabytes on more modern equipment. So it is a factor because if you're not careful, memory and CPU will be overtaxed if you don't have discrete graphics card capability. Because the CPU has to run code to do your video display building, and it shares your main memory. On some systems, that can be 6 to 8 gigabytes of your memory. And when you're sharing that memory with your running programs, suddenly you have a lot of juggling around going on between the various applications and your CPU and memory trying to display whatever is on the screen. That's where you really run into problems. So if you have a discrete video, you will have less problems with CPU and memory usage. But that's all up to you to know and understand. Now, in the case of Bob Primick, he's got a NUX. The only way you can do this with a NUX, they have external housings with a power supply that you can plug a video card into and get the hardware acceleration that way. But I don't know how well that works with sharing your main memory, because you have to have some kind of an output to the external graphics card. That also works with laptops. I've never investigated that. That's up to each individual to determine what they may need that will work for their particular needs. So, generally speaking, this is brought up because hardware acceleration used to be kind of a luxury for only the game players. Anymore, you've got to have more hardware acceleration in your computers. There's at least a dozen in 4 articles that I have given out at the South Suburban. I didn't include them here in today's handout, but I can give anybody a copy of those 4. It's also a case where new hardware is coming to us within a year or so called an NPU. Some of it will be built into some of the Intel and AMD chips, and some of it may be a separate integrated circuit on the motherboard using average plain CPU chips. And then NPU is a neural processing unit to help AI work faster and better on your computer. It also gives you the ability. Now, this is showing one thing here, and I want to pause that, and I'm going to back it up just a little bit. Okay, just a second there while I finish off the thought. Some of the software, more and more, that you have on your Windows system has AI built into it, including like Paint Shop as an example. Another one is the snipping tool. And there's many, many more besides Copilot. Well, some of these things, an NPU will be able to run the AI portion without an internet connection. Right now, without an NPU, you have to have an internet connection. But a discrete video card may have enough hardware acceleration capability. You might want more memory than any 2 gigabyte, and it may handle some of the load from AI processes. So this is where hardware acceleration is now coming to the fore for most people, and it's not a joke anymore. It's and it's not just for gamers or people who use a workstation or something like that. Now, what I discovered here, I'm going to proceed with that video. I didn't see it documented anywhere, but I happened to double click on one of these categories, CPU, and look what happened. This is adjustable in some of the site. I can make this with a setting, the gear wheel, on 10, you have a tab, a file menu, called options. And in there you can set this thing to always be on top. You can also change setting so that Task Manager opens on something other than processes. So right up here, options in the file menu is it allows always be on top, and settings down here will allow you to change this. Maybe you want Task Manager to always open up on performance. So you just click on setting. A flyout menu will give you the option of changing to performance, or one of the other categories that there is a tab for. So this is how Task Manager is in 10, and you now can have a performance monitor on your system when you're having issues and trying to figure out where is your bottleneck at. Now, there's the I can change from the processes to performance, apply history, app history, excuse me, startup, users, etc. And these are the other tabs of 10. So it gives you some added flexibility within the task manager most people haven't got a clue about. Now I'm going to stop this and stop sharing to open up the other one I've got. Let me get out of that and get into this one. Oops, sorry. 1 second there. All right. And I am going to this thing takes off too fast. Anyway, got that. Now, minimize that, share screen, and share. Now, before I start the video going, on both task managers, 10 and 11, you right-click in a blank area of the taskbar, and in 11, it only shows this short menu. The other one, you probably didn't see it, but it brings up a larger menu, and one of them is called Task Manager. But this is what you get in 11. Okay, again, processes are normal. Now I'm going down to the second icon on the left side, and it says performance. And there's the familiar look.
Jim, you're not shared. There you go.
It's been sharing, but I don't know what is going on. Anyway, generally speaking, this is an old Intel Core 2 Quad processor at 2.83 gigabytes. It has 4 cores, no hyper-threading, no virtualization on this CPU. It's running about 53% at the time or so, 2.5 gigahertz operational speed, 226 processes, up for over 3 days. And now here's the memory at 16 at DDR3 memory. It's using about 40, I think 3%. And the CPU is at 62%. And it's running also at 1333 on this old machine. And gives you the statistics down here at the bottom. The SSD is disk 0. It's running about up to 30% at the moment. And it's a 500 gigabyte drive as well. There it goes now. It just says SATA there, but it's the capacity down here is such that it's around a 500 gigabyte drive. Also, I had to upgrade it as well. Disk 1 is spinning hard drive. Ethernet is my main connection. At the time, I was doing nothing, flatline. And on Ethernet, it shows you an S and a number, R and a number. That's sending out packets and receiving packets at a kilobit speeds. And then Ethernet 2 again is VirtualBox. And I have a GPU that right now is running up to around 22%, or no, 25% it went up to. So it spikes a bit there as well. Again, it's the same card as in the other machine. It's only got 2 gigabytes, but 2 gigabytes on a discrete card beats the hell out of, say, a 1 gigabyte card that may also give you some performance relief. Prior to this, I had in this particular machine a 500 megabyte card, and I was starting to have problems on Zoom because there wasn't enough capacity. So going to a 2 gigabyte card, I haven't had Zoom issues now anymore. So it's a case where the GPU may be 10 years old, but it gives me hardware acceleration to improve the overall performance of this system. So this is part of what I was trying to bring up to the South group. I didn't have all this video and stuff, so I'm trying to show you something here that will, and I'm trying to speed up this process again, the video. I'm manually moving it along. And I went down to the bottom left where the gear is at. If I go here, default start page, I select again the one I want to start Task Manager out on. And down here in Windows Management, I can say always on top. And you can see then Task Manager. But on top of that, again, when this rebuilds in, if I double click on one of these categories, it's going to give me that brief window that if it's always on top, no matter how many windows you have open on your monitor, you're always going to see that box with the controls showing you the graphs and some of the statistics going on. So it's, again, a critical item. And I may have accidentally skipped over that showing of the little box. I think it's just before this. No, it's got to be back a little bit further. Well, at any rate, trust me, if I double click on any one of these over here on this left side, I'm going to get that same small box like we saw on Windows 10 Task Manager. So I'm going to stop that. And I got 3 little slides to show you. Oops. All right, we got that. And I'm going to put that down and share my screen. And this is a Zoom meeting I was in towards the end, but it gives you an idea. My GPU was running at 53%, my memory at 47%. The disk at the time was not very active. Ethernet is showing a pretty fair amount of activity, mostly on the receive side, which you expect, because the send side only sends out what do I want to, information do I want to get back. And at the bottom is the GPU running at about 27%. If I didn't have the GPU, CPU and memory usage would be much higher. So then I took another snapshot near the absolute end of the meeting, and the CPU had some spikes here, and memory stayed about the same, Ethernet was about the same, and the GPU was the same, but it had a small spike in it as well. Then the last picture was after the Zoom meeting was over with, and you can see the CPU dropping down to about 4%. The memory usage dropped to 43%. Ethernet went down to near zero, and the GPU went down to just a couple percent. This is what hardware acceleration can mean, especially to older equipment. So I'm bringing this to everybody's attention, mostly because if I don't, then you guys are going to get stuck at some point in time. And that time is coming sooner rather than later. And I had my Zoom on the system, the Linux system, crash. So I got to log back in. Ain't that fun? So I got to log that back in. And open link. And there. Gets me back. Take that down. What? Oops. Clicked on the wrong thing. All right. Now we're back in business again. All right. Anybody have any questions on the task manager that many of us would be using on our Windows systems, especially when we start having some problems, and about hardware acceleration? Peter?
Jim, in Linux, it's systems monitor. Can you bring that up on your machine?
Only if you beg me
I'm in a
to.
Linux group right now.
Only if you beg me to.
There's system monitor. There's other things as well.
Yes. It's the other things that are better. System monitor is somewhat limited. I'm on resources right now,
Yeah.
and this gives you how I'm using my CPU, memory, and network. There is no GPU card in the Linux box. I assume it may show it if I did have one, but I cannot shrink this down. Now, Bob Premick last year in one of the APCUG workshops showed some tools that can be put in to create a panel similar to what I showed on the Windows terminal, but giving you even more granular details if you can read the small print and have a good sense of how your system under Linux is performing.
Yeah, there is a widget. It's called G Krellum, capital G, capital K, RELL, capital M. It drags in a lot of GNOME components. So you got to watch out for that.
Okay, you might put that in the chat box.
Okay, I will put down G Chrome. And there may be a place where you can find out about it.
Okay. And Peter, did you have all yours covered, or do you still have more?
Yeah, I want to show the find. Oh, there's the chat box. Okay.
And by the
Yeah,
way,
that's what.
yeah, G Chrome is available cross-platform, Windows as well.
Well, I'd just as soon use the task manager now that I know I can make a little panel that isn't that bad and obtrusive. It may not give quite some of the detail G Chrome might give, but at least I don't have to do an add-on. It's something that comes with Windows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and System Monitor comes with Mint.
Yes, but it's
Yeah.
not as advantageous that I can see where I can have a small panel like I found out I can do in Task Manager on Windows 10 and 11.
It's more limited.
I mean, as far as the graphs go, this is very much the same in Windows as it is in the Linux system monitor. But I don't need this large of a panel because if I have this on my system, I'm blocking out, about an eighth of my screen if I've got multiple other windows. And
I agree with you.
if I have a system monitor on top, always on top, then it gets in the way of especially a presentation on Zoom. So it's not as advantageous. I can, you're talking what I showed you on Task Manager in Windows. I don't think I can shrink this anymore. No. This is as small as this window gets. And I
Yeah.
can almost go on this line between processes and resources and draw a line straight down, and I see all the categories that are in Task Manager, and the rest of the space would be for whatever screen or screens are on my desktop that I want to be able to view.
Yeah, Tim, one other thing. You were talking about the advantages of GPUs. The ARM architecture is different from Intel and AMD.
Yes,
The GPUs are on board, and
right.
there's a lot of them. And it has huge advantages when you're dealing with the kinds of things you were discussing. This is why the Apple M2 and M3 chips are being viewed by the Windows PC manufacturers as such a threat. And they're trying to counter that. Probably Windows is going to go over to ARM sometime pretty soon.
They're already in discussions with Intel since they opened up their fabrication plants to create an ARM chip, probably to combat Apple Silicon.
Actually, if Intel made it, it wouldn't be ARM. It would be RISC, but not ARM.
No, my understanding is they must have bought a license to be able to make it an ARM chip.
Oh yeah, that's right. They have a stake, a big stake in ARM.
Yeah, and so they have the right to make an ARM chip. And what features it'll have on it, I don't know. But you already have Windows on ARM chips, but you cannot get it like Windows Home and Pro versions. You have to buy a machine with it pre-installed. I think that
I
sucks.
I think that probably will be true. Windows on ARM will be tied to the machine.
Yeah, and so I don't like that factor, especially when some people need Pro versus home editions. So that's another little, I guess you could call it gotcha, as it were. Uh,
I'm sure for a subscription you could get Pro or even Enterprise for ARM,
don't know.
but it just hasn't happened yet.
That I'm not that certain about. I've got a little oddity on my.
All I was saying was that you don't need separate GPUs if you've got an ARM system,
Right,
generally.
right. But bottom line, what I'm also trying to get at is hang on one second here. I'm on my Linux system and it's giving me a migraine headache. It's not getting out. You're seeing no shared screen, but my Linux system's showing a shared screen still.
Try again.
Yeah.
By the way, with regard to NUC, it got taken over by Asus,
Yes.
and they're going to have different models, and some are going to be laptops, some are going to be the same hobbyist form factor, and some are going to be a new form factor, somewhere in between a little one and a desktop. And I do have a desktop computer.
Well, I got to get back into my sharing here, so I got to go back into Zoom on the Linux machine. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm having some difficulty on the Linux box that I haven't had before. All right. Now, I got that
It's
back.
that cold you've been passing around.
Pardon?
It's that cold you've been passing around. It's
Yeah,
got a
that's right.
virus.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your computer
Anyway,
could.
some laptops, but mostly gamer laptops, do have a discrete card capability also. But there are a few non-gamer machines that can have the same feature if you can afford the extra cost because GPUs can be quite expensive. Uh, in my little mini micros, 7x7 inch machines, believe it or not, the item I get tomorrow delivered by the post office is a graphics card for one of those. I'm going to try it out. But you got to get also a beefed up power supply. And that monster came today. This little monster. 150 watts at least has to be used because the graphics card is a 580, I think it was, Radeon. And in HP, you can get this for 60 bucks. But then when you add in the power supply, you're spending a little over $100 besides the machine that you bought in the first place. But the machine that I'm testing this out on is a HP Elite Desk 705 Gen 4 that uses a Ryzen chip, a 2400G, and 2400G, any of them that end with a G, has built-on graphics capability to a standard size chip. Take that chip and replace it with another chip, it doesn't have a G on it, then you have no video. So the only option is to have this graphics card you stick in order to have graphics out of that machine with a different non-G processor. And I have two of them available, but when you stick them in, you get a black screen because it has no video to output. So it's one of those things that you have to learn and play with. I was, by the way, going to bring up Linux System Monitor before you spoke up, Peter.
Okay.
Just for your information. Now, I also have various articles this month. Oops, what the heck did I click?
Bob, I'm going to
Pardon?
install Bob. I'm going to install G Chrome after the meeting.
Yeah, see how you like it.
Yeah. I may eventually do it too. Anyway, I'm opening up various articles. The first one, Bob Baxter might have some members who would be interested in it. And I've got a little bit of a story to mention. Okay. 6 uses for a Linux home server. Now, one of our other leaders, Sanford Kolonek, is still to this day using a Windows 7 home server and refuses to give it up because of all the videos and pictures that he has on that system. The irony is, especially since Sanford reported the highest viewing was the Linux group videos, I have here a home server that can be set up under Linux. The only problem is the extreme time and labor that he would have to do to transfer all the stuff he's got on his current home server with very large drives in them over to this home server if it cannot read the current recorded format in the file structure. And I don't know what he has, but I'm assuming NTFS. But if I remember correctly, no, that should be NTFS 2. There used to be a NTFS 1, and I think it was in 2000, Windows 2000, or very early part of Windows XP, they changed the NTF format to the second version that we've been using since then. And I don't remember what the reason was by any means, because that was more than 15 years ago. But this Linux home server sounds quite interesting. Repurpose an old PC. Lots of us have some stuff that's going to be obsolete very soon. Share file efficiently. Set up a home media server with Linux. Block nasties across your home network with Pi-hole built in, at least to this version that they're creating. And Pi-hole kind of acts like what's called a honeypot, so that a lot of the nasties get drawn into the Pi-hole and are lost forever. Then you have control of your data, get hands-on IT experience with a home Linux server. I may look into this one. I'm not sure exactly when the hell I'll be able to get to it, but it sounds quite interesting to me. I can use part of the storage for storing up my backups, which are scattered across more than a dozen external laptop size USB drives. And I got, I think, enough bandwidth on my internal network. I'm not going to worry about it. Here's 5 bash script examples to help you learn Linux programming. So there's some people who are not here tonight that I wish were here to see this. Basically, how to print hello in bash which big deal. It's a foundation for learning how to create a bash script. Create a directory to read by reading input, and create a directory using command line arguments, and delete a file using bash function. Create a basic calculator for arithmetic calculations. Notice I did not say arithmetic. In some verbiage of computer technology, you have to watch it, because all of a sudden you may be stumbling over this word trying to say arithmetic, and you know in your brain that you're not enunciating something right. There's a grammatical error or something, but the actual enunciation of this word is arithmetic. And most computer technology write-ups, the grammar is structured correctly if you say arithmetic. I guarantee it. And I can go back 40 years teaching a whole class how to enunciate it correctly. And finally, the teacher who had a wife who was a school teacher, he asked her about it, and she said, I am correct. It is really arithmetic. We Americans butcher it and say arithmetic. But also, too, when we have 1 plus 2, we say 1 and 2. And is a Boolean logic operator, not an arithmetic operation. And I taught a little bit of substitute teaching, and I showed that stuff to several classes of students. Then we have the 5.
Yeah.
Pardon? Did somebody say?
I don't have, in my emails, I don't have the initial email. I just have the link email.
Pardon?
The list you're going off of,
Oh, I see what's going on. I didn't share. Sorry about that. It's okay. You didn't probably weren't that interested.
I wanted to be able to get to the server one.
Oh, that's too bad. I won't let you. Okay.
I'll give you a bad review.
Yeah, good. I need a bad review. Hang on a minute. I'll close these off so I can reopen the darn thing. This is an all or nothing deal. Okay.
You could just copy the link to the chat, I would appreciate
Don't worry
it.
about it. Here's the original article, 6 uses for the Linux home server. 5 bash script examples that I verbally was telling you about. The next is track network connections in Linux with a packet stat. Trust me, it's command line. So basically, it's a command line utility that shows packet activity in real time, similar to how top and htop show information on processes. Installing a packet stat is easy, and it can be found in the package manager of most major Linux distros. This is Debian base, which includes Ubuntu and Mint. This is Pacman is Arch, and DNF is also RPM based systems. And then it tells you how to get it installed, how to monitor connections, and valuable addition to your system admin tool set, because it can possibly give you information about how traffic is going in and out of your network and from individual machines. So it's something to take into account. Then I have running out of disk space on Linux. Check your logs. Well, you have Linux system logs can take up a significant amount of space. Your system will normally compress older log files to save disk space. You can use the journal control or tail -F command to view the logs and identify problematic processes. Why are logs taking up so much space? I'm not going to go into the details. You can read that on your own. Find your logs, and that way you can get rid of your own logs. You can also rotate log files so that they get the space they're already taken gets reused again and again and again on rotating. And which logs are safe to delete. How to fix what's filling up your logs is the last bit of information. 6 Linux terminal tips, tricks to get things done quickly. You have brief benefits of using the Linux terminal: efficiency, universal and lightweight, total control. You can do tab auto completion, navigation shortcuts, searching and running previous commands, using a terminal multiplexer, creating command line aliases, getting command line help, and overall improving your workflow and mastering the Linux terminal. Now, sometimes Bob has to leave early, so I'm going to pause here for a moment.
Well,
Are you going to be leaving? I'm going to.
I will have to leave in about a half an hour.
Well, that's
Just
okay.
about that.
I'll put in the chat box. Hang loose for a minute. I'm going to stop the share there. And if I can figure out what I'm doing, it'll be a first. Okay. I want to do that. Do a chat. Oh, I forgot about this. Okay. I keep forgetting in Linux, I can't do some of the things I normally do in the Linux. Okay.
I didn't think Linux people were
By
allowed
the
to
way,
say.
Bob, you didn't put your information in about G Chrome. Anyway,
Yes, I did.
it's not showing on my system. Oh, wait a minute. I had to restart multiple times. Hang on.
8:54 p.m. Want me to repost?
Hang loose. No, I've got it on my main system.
All right.
It's remember on the Linux system, I've had to reboot Zoom now the third time. But anyway,
Yeah.
out there you should see the file of the articles.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to get back in, I hope, to sharing this. Okay. And we'll move that over a little bit. And I've got how to run Android apps and games in Linux. Now, here's an irony. There, for those who are familiar with Chromebooks, they came out with Chromebook Plus. The one of the downsides to Chromebook Plus, you can't run Android apps, but you can run Linux apps. Go figure that one out. Because regular Chrome will run both Android apps and Linux apps, and Android apps came well before supporting Linux apps. So that came as a bit of a surprise about the Linux, the Chromebook Plus, and it's a tad more expensive, but not that bad. I'll let you guys look that up on your own if you're interested. Waydroid is the best option for running Android apps on Linux systems using Wayland Display Server, such as the newest version of Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, and Arch. Creating an Android virtual machine using an open source Android x86 project is a simple way to run Android apps on your Linux system also. Android Studio is primarily for developers, but can be used to create a personal Android virtual device for running Android apps on Linux as well. So they give you several ways if you want to run Android apps like on your phone, if you got an Android phone, and be able to use the same apps on your Linux computer. Next, I have how to control the CPU fan speed on Linux. In some cases, this can be important in that some computers don't allow you to control the fan speed on the CPU, and it may create a good deal of racket. So that one's up to you guys. 9 smallest distros that are super light if you got real old equipment that you want to keep running in some fashion. These might be worth looking at. And you have Arch Bang, you have Tiny Core, and Tiny Core is super duper small. And I'm not kidding. You're talking like, I think, under 256 megabytes, if I remember right. Absolute Linux, you got Portesis? I don't know how to enunciate that. Puppy Linux, then Slytaz, I think is the way that's announced, Anti-X, Bodhi Linux, and Linux Lite. Your mileage may vary based upon the version. You have to look at it. You can run Tiny Core on almost anything, probably going back to a Pentium 3 processor, as long as you got enough memory. Because what it does is it reads the file, loads the entire operating system and utilities into your memory, then gives you access to the system. You could literally put this Tiny Core on a flash drive, and once it's loaded up, remove the flash drive, as I remember from years back. Some of the others may be almost as small and able to fit in less than 1 gigabyte of memory. Some of them will fit under 640 megabytes, even 512 megabytes. So your mileage may vary. If you got some real old equipment you want to keep going, I get a charge out of seeing what I can do with old equipment. That's why I have 10 running on such old equipment. I can get 11 to run on some, but there's going to be a change this fall with 24H2. This system that I'm using right now as the main system doing the recording, I cannot upgrade to because it will never boot up. you must have a Core i Intel processor. I'm not sure what AMD processors yet, but I do know that these Core 2 dual and quad processors will refuse to boot up Windows 11 unsupported. If you got a Core i3, i5, i7 first generation, all the way to the 14th generation that we have now, along with the i9 that's been out for quite a few generations, those will take 24H2 and run no problem. I have a lot of 11s here that are supported. They'll take the 24H2 with no problems. It's just these two machines I have in front of me that I did those videos on the Task Manager. Neither one of them will run Windows 11 24H2. I have to change the system, or I gotta stay on the current version of Windows 11. How to generate an SSH key in Linux. This is primarily for anybody who is managing remote computers, usually headless computers. Once they're set up and running, you remove the keyboard, mouse, and monitor, and you access them remotely through SSH. And this is how to create the key. Make sure it's a very good, strong key, or you're going to be crying in your beer. Best 6 system monitor apps for Linux. This gets into what we were talking about a little bit earlier. GNOME System Monitor, Plasma System Monitor, Resources, Mission Critical. Gee, I wonder what that looks like. Monitorettes. I haven't heard that one before. System Monitor Center. So there's some other tools. This one here seems to indicate that you can run the Windows Task Manager. Let's assume users are already familiar with Microsoft Windows. In that case, your first run within the system monitor is neither GNOME nor KDE Tool, but the Windows Task Manager. You can run that app on Linux. Not quite, but Mission Center is probably close enough, and that's this one down here that they're referring to. So they're taking people who are using and or have used Windows in the past and saying you can't quite get that on Linux unless maybe it runs under Wine and you can find what to transfer from a Windows system to a Linux box running Wine. This might be a compromised alternative on Linux. So that's something for those who are interested to look at. How to change the Ubuntu lock screen background. I found this kind of interesting. I haven't done it yet, but I'm a lot of things that in articles say is for Ubuntu. Some of them will work on Mint as well. So you might want to take a shot and see if you can change your login screen background on Mint. Unless you're running a version of Ubuntu and you want to do it there too. How to install software on Linux. Package formats explained. So this is giving you a scenario of all the package managers, how they work, basically, in case you are trying to understand the different package managers that are in use. 12 things that are easier to do in a Linux command line. Gee, open a terminal. Yeah, there's a Control Alt T as in Tom. There's quickly check system performance. This is a interesting looking system performance background. Something like Task Manager, in a certain sense, gives you a lot of the information. So that's something to look at. Kill any program. Check disk usage. Check the weather, as if we don't have enough weather apps. Change your screen resolution. Transfer files to your server. Back up your Linux files. Install new Linux software. Manage your to-do list. Update your software. Search for and watch YouTube videos. From the command line. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that one. Next one is ZSH. I don't know how they particularly announce that. Versus Bash scripting and what the difference is. I know of this and several others, but I have never used any of the scripting languages thus far. It's just a case where one of these days I'm going to have to anyhow. I don't mind that, but it's a case of a lot of people with a lot of heavy background have created quite a few competitors to Bash as shells for your command window. And as a result, ZSH is one of several. So they're just giving you an idea why you might want to use ZSH instead of Bash. It all depends upon what it is you're trying to basically automate. That's what I consider scripting to be, is a form of taking and automating some various processes. As an example, I'm going to get out of sharing and offhand, one example that comes to mind from way back when in the Windows world, before we even had large memory, you might set up a RAM disk. And what you might do is create a auto-exec.bat file that establishes at boot the RAM disk and its size. B, have a lot of copy statements copying the most used software that you use on your system into the RAM disk. And then probably at that point, in most cases, you would exit the auto-exec.bat file, and you would be running all your applications from the RAM disk, which beats the hell out of old spinning hard drives. But with SSDs, there aren't too many current uses for RAM disk, but I do know that in a certain sense, TinyCore works in a fashion like a RAM disk because it puts all of itself into memory from a single copy from the source flash drive or disk drive. Robert.
A couple of things. You were mentioning Android apps on Linux, and uh, your article talked about Wayland.
Mm-hmm.
Mint Cinnamon does not have complete support for Wayland at the present time.
Right.
LMDE 6 with Cinnamon 6 is a little closer than mainline Mint.
Yes.
Second thing, one of the other articles that you were just going over, ZSH is the native Mac OS shell script.
Okay, but still, in people, Mac came from basically the Unix world to begin with, and like I said, a lot of people in the past thought Bash too limiting or performance wasn't that great, and I think there's something like a dozen different shells, and ZSH it happens to just be one of many.
Yeah, I think the article was comparing how it is to work in shell scripting in a Mac versus under Linux. And I
Yep.
have also worked with the Crush shell in Chrome OS.
Hmm. And basically, the Mac OS is based on, if I remember correctly, one of the many BSD distros, which is a microcomputer a Unix operating system. It's not really Linux. So when you're on a Mac OS, you're really running a uh, microcomputer version of Unix. And whereas Linux emulates a lot of the characteristic and features of a Unix operating system because Linus Torvalds was impressed in college with the Unix operating system so much, but he wanted to be able to use it on a microcomputer rather than have to use a mainframe or other mini computer that could run a Unix operating environment, and that's when he manually kind of created the Linux operating system that keeps on growing.
The other big issue was that Minix was non-free. You had to pay for it. And they wanted a free alternative for students.
Yes. Uh, the other issue I want to bring up, I don't have anything to show you. This machine has Wi-Fi capability. And because the motherboard in this mini micro computer is like that of a laptop, it uses the same kind of a card that most laptops use, which I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but we'll give it a shot. This little tiny card here, boy, there's a lot of reflection. There we go. That's the best image I can give you. That little card fits into the slot inside of there with one screw holding it down. And then you connect antenna wires to it. In this case here, in most of my systems, it's one wire instead of two wire. And I have external antennas that give some dB boost to the Wi-Fi signal that's picked up. But right now, my card doesn't work. The card is an Intel 7265. And I looked up under Intel, and from what I can see, Linux is supported through kernel 4.2. Linux Mint 21 has got a 5 level. Currently, I think it's 5.15 is the standard long-term support one. But right now, this machine is bumped up 2 levels higher. Both one is I think a 5.9, and the one I'm on is 6.5. Both are supported through August of this year. And then you'll have to install another kernel. I wanted to do it for an experiment. In either case, what I'm getting at is this is an age-old problem for me, going back to Raspberry Pi back in, I think it was around 2012. A lot of USB dongles to work in a Raspberry Pi didn't work, but they'd work great under Windows. So right at the moment, there are only three sets of cards that are natively supported by Linux Mint. Atheros, I think it is, Realtek, and I can't remember what the third one is, but the majority of the cards are 2.4 gigahertz single band. I want dual band. And so there aren't that many. I have two on order. I'll probably get them the end of the week to try them out. I'm going to put one in this machine, see how that works. And I'll have one as a spare in case I want to use it in another machine. But generally speaking, you have to kind of watch it. If you're adding Wi-Fi to a machine, you've got to have one that will work with Linux. And those that work with Linux also happen to work with Windows. So you get the best of both worlds, potentially. Peter?
Yeah, I ran into that when I was starting up my machines out on the Lanai. If you remember the conversation we had about maybe half, where I found one USB dongle that would work after playing around, and then I went and ordered two more of supposedly the exact same dongle from Amazon, and the two new ones would not work because they were an upgraded revision on the dongle. I had to go to eBay to get two older dongles, making sure that I had this exact same reference things on the dongles themselves.
Well, see,
So be very careful.
I did look up mine for Mint 21, and that's why I know which models. But even the model I got might have a gotcha, but I got an article that shows you how to deal with the problem. So that's something that you guys can remind me of next month, and that to see how things worked out for me. But you do have to watch it. If you've got a old Windows machine or Chromebook and you want to convert them to run Linux only, you may run into the same issue, and that's not a joke. So most of mine are running the Intel chip, either 7260 or 7265. There's an 8000 and 9000 series cards, but I don't need the high end yet because I don't have router systems that go all the way up into the 6 megahertz stratosphere. And Wi-Fi 7 is now on the market. Also, DDR6 is on the market. I was bringing up hardware acceleration, discrete video cards. Well, I'm using 2 and 4 gigahertz cards in various systems. Not too many of my systems use discrete cards to begin with, but I did know that they could give me, even with real old cards, a slight performance pickup. At any rate, when it comes to discrete cards right now, that if you went out on eBay, you could put in a search term like graphic card NNGB space memory. NN, you put in a number, such as 2, or 4, or 8. 16, well, actually 12, and then 16, they all show up with lots of cards. Then I decided I'll put in 32. Nothing shows up, at least on eBay right now. So then I thought, well, based on the incremental levels, I stuck in 24. 24 exists. And you are, one thing you have to take into account in any machine you stick in a discrete graphics card, you have to know the wattage of your motherboard, the wattage of your CPU. Your memory probably is insignificant enough to skip. And if you're using SSDs for the most part, you can skip those. But if you're using spinning hard drives, primarily 3.5 inch, you're going to need to know the wattage on them times the number of drives you've got. And then you have your discrete card that can take up a lot of wattage, and that's why a lot of gamers with high-end discrete graphic cards for playing their games have to have very large power supplies. Right now, I've got a system. It's got, and it's a recent build. Bob Premick and one other person, I sent pictures of the build before I tore it down to put it in the case. It's a AMD Ryzen 7 2700X. Has 8 logical cores. It has 16 gigs of memory. It has an M.2 256 gigabyte running Windows 11. And I have a 4 gigabyte discrete video card in it, and it's easily running on a 350 watt power supply. If I change that to a 6 gigabyte card, I would probably have to bump the power supply to a 430 to a 500 watt power supply. And if you go any higher, you have to do even more. And here's the kicker. First, you have to look at your motherboard. Even though you're using a discrete card, you have a yellow and black connector to the motherboard. It could be 4-wire, 6-wire, 8-wire. That's 12 volt only supply. Your discrete card, if it's very old, it may not have a need for a 12 volt booster supply. But if it does, it could be a 4, a 6, an 8, and mine has an 8 on it for the 4 gigabyte card. And some of the current cards go up to a double 8. That means your power supply has to have enough 12 volt connections for the motherboard plus whatever your graphic card happens to need along with the wattage. This is mind-blowing to me. I usually don't go real high end, and I love playing with old equipment just to see for kicks, what can I do with this old piece of equipment besides recycle it? And most of my equipment is real old. There's a little bit here that could be junked because it's not going to be probably ever running again. But once 10 goes dead, if I don't run Linux on it, there's a lot more hardware that might bite the dust and get sent to a recycler. I already have plenty of computer systems, much more modern, much more powerful, without even being the latest, greatest hardware. I do mine on a budget. And I try and get things as cheap as I can and still be able to run 11 or Linux on it and any earlier version of Windows that I have as a tech, usually for support purposes in case I get calls. Believe it or not, a couple years back, I got a call for a small business needing information and support for Windows XP. And most people were on Windows 10 already. And I think they had one on 10, and while I was working with him, he got a laptop that was on 10. So he had two 10s and a bunch on XP. And that's the way he ran his business. And he knows that there's danger in using an obsolete system. But it's his business. If he wants to do it, who am I to say otherwise? So I just try to give support. And he was using one computer with XP, kind of like a server, to back up his files to make them available on all the machines they were doing production on. And I got him to move to a NAS so that all that stuff was on a more modern, more robust system that's newer and supported, not old Windows XP, which is not supported. And he also wanted the ability to VPN in from remote sites, potential customers, and tap into the files of that business if he's done prior business with them, and be able to show the customer the old file and any new file he created that was on the NAS. So that's things you have to think of and consider in the long term. That's why I like it was kind of timely. I didn't think I was going to have to do research. I have done some research in the past on Linux server. It seems like Ubuntu server seemed like the most likely candidate versus something like CentOS or similar operating systems, regardless of what base they are based on. But this article, I'm going to keep at my fingertips, and when I can find the time, I might work on making a home server and then see if I can figure out what I can do with a home server. I've thought of doing a NAS in the past, mostly to back up my machine's backup images. In this case here, I'll try the home server, and I may expand beyond just that one thing. Anybody got anything else?
Trying to get the hand to go up, but it's not going. I'll just chime in here. On the home server, what operating systems in Linux did you use? Or what distros?
Well, hang on a minute. I'd have to go look at that again.
The article doesn't say.
Well, generally speaking, you can use just about anything, but from past research that I had done, I got the impression more so that Ubuntu server might be the best one. But what you frequently have to do based upon that research is you may have to install regular Ubuntu so you have a desktop. And then you install Ubuntu Server, and from the desktop, you can configure the server the way you need to and maintain it. And you log off the desktop version, leaving Ubuntu Server running. And he disappeared. So I don't know if he picked up the last words I said or not. But generally speaking, this is the things you have to consider. There isn't a one size fits all for all the people who are using computers. And I don't care what you're doing. So it depends on, hey, if you got lots of movies, you got lots of photos, you got lots of backup files, either a home server or a NAS server are the two best solutions that I can come up with. But I think we lost Peter probably for the rest of the night. So I don't know what else to tell you. I would probably look at the Ubuntu server myself, based upon my prior research. I'll grant you, in business, CentOS still has a big following, even though I think CentOS was discontinued years ago.
CentOS itself was discontinued in 2021. There is a fork called CentOS Stream now.
Okay. Well, at least somebody's keeping it going. Hopefully, they're keeping it up to date.
CentOS Stream is very different from the way CentOS was, but it's still there.
Yeah. So at the moment, I don't think. Oh, Peter's coming back.
Yeah. The other thing is Anti-X, which was mentioned in the Little Linux article. I believe that's the one that was involved in merging into MX Linux, because Anti-X
Okay, so
came
I
from.
just lost you guys for 6 minutes.
Yeah, I was just saying something about Anti-X having been derived from Mepis or Mepis,
Yeah.
and then those two merged sort of into MX Linux, and Anti-X maintains a fork of its own, which is the smaller of them. MX has become more of a mainstream Linux.
Yeah. But MX Linux, there's people I know that really liked MX Linux, but because a lot of newbies that they're trying to help get going switch to Mint because it's the most widely used one by a lot of the newbies. Not all,
Yeah,
but a lot.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see if in the next few years people get disaffected with some things going on with Ubuntu and end up with Linux Mint Debian edition the way I have.
Well, I have it. I play with it, but I am not using any of my Linuxes heavily as far as that goes. But I do use them a fair amount besides this meeting, etc. But I also play with a lot of other flavors of Linux, including Arch. I use Gecko, which is in the RPM center, I'll call it. And then I have a lot of Debian Ubuntu-based OSs as well.
Now, before things wrap up, was there anything further that you and Pete wanted to sort out about servers?
Well, like I was saying, Pete, when you may have disappeared towards the end there, uh, basically Ubuntu server, from my research, is the best way to go. You have to load up Unix. I'll get it yet. Ubuntu on the desktop first. Why? Because that's your controlling of the server. Then you load in the Ubuntu server, you control it and set up and configure it all the time and manage it through that local server. You can, if you want to, set up the server on a machine by itself, but you're going to have a headache configuring it unless you do it from a live Unix Ubuntu stick to be able to set up SSH. And from one of your local computers that you're already up and going, you would SSH then into the server to finish configuring it and being able to manage it over time. But Ubuntu server seems to be the best route to go. And I just heard one hell of a crack of thunder. I assume accompanied by some good lightning.
So from what I'm hearing, you take a machine and you put Ubuntu itself on a machine, and then you
Install
make
the
a separate partition with a server on it on that same machine.
yes, basically on the same system, in the same root, you'd install Ubuntu server version also. And then from the desktop, you can configure the server and then log off regular desktop Ubuntu, leaving the server still running. And anytime you need to manage and configure the server, you just bring up the desktop version. Or you set things up on the server part, including SSH to remote into it from another computer. And then you can, if you initially set up Ubuntu desktop, you can remove it. And boy, it sounds like it's really something outside. And I ain't kidding. It sounds like it's really coming down hard on rain unless we're getting some hail. Anyway, that's basically how you get around doing a lot of this. So you have to do a little research on servers, what server OSs are available. Ubuntu server is one of them, and there are a couple different ways of setting up the server. You just have to be able to configure it when you install it. And you can't install it and set up SSH for remote without some local connection. Think of it like the difference between a wired mouse and keyboard versus a wireless mouse and keyboard. In certain circumstances, especially if you have to replace a motherboard, you cannot use your wireless keyboard and mouse. You have to have a wired version until you set up the new motherboard and turn on the Wi-Fi capability. And he's gone again. I don't know if he'll come back or not. It's 9 o'clock anyhow. So I think we'll call it a night. And if you guys remind me, I'll hopefully. Oh, here comes Peter again.
Yeah. Let's get him back, then we can close out. Okay. So, what do you need to be reminded of?
I'll be trying to set up the monitoring Chrome on.
Build it again.
I'll be trying to set up the G Crum on one of my systems. I'll be doing the Wi-Fi card change and seeing if I can get my Wi-Fi working, and you guys can find out what I'm using.
Oh, one other thing about Wi-Fi. TP-Link is the other brand.
Okay, that could be, but a lot of what I saw, yeah, extreme alert. Gee, I wouldn't have known this.
Hmm.
I just have to listen. My front window is right
The
next to
roof,
me.
Don't need a weatherman to tell you which way the wind is blowing.
Now, anyway, so those are the two main things I might need reminding of to bring up next month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call it a night, and we can go from there.
yeah, I'm gonna
Based
say aloha
upon
from out
what
here.
I'm hearing right now, we got to be getting hail because I got an awning, and I'm hearing bang bang.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Have a good night, and hopefully your weather's better than mine. Wow. That sounds good. Oh, bitch. Yeah, I'm getting hail, but it's all small shit. At least, I don't know. All right.
This to the east here. It's going to move quickly. I believe we have Larry with me as well this evening. And what we're finding in that latest scan is that this storm is moving quickly off to the east. So this really won't be sticking around for too long, but something we do have to monitor. And Larry, we've been watching this storm system for several hours now. Clear
I'm
signs
either
on
at the
velocity
edge
of rotation within these thunderstorms this evening. We're not out of the woods yet. We have the tornado watch in effect until 10 p.m. So this is the last of it. It's just to the east in northwest Indiana, but still finding that rotation here, very close to the Hampton area in Chicago as well. Right along I-80 here, crossing over 20. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's just about ready to cross over the state line in the next few minutes or so. And you can see the outline on the map here of the tornado warning until 9:30, and then the severe thunderstorm warning for northern Lake County until 9:45. Let me zoom in closer and show you the outline of the box here. Right now, that circulation is just getting closer to you folks in Hammond. You can see the tornado warning continues over towards the Gary area, just south of Whiting, Hammond, Griffith. You're included in that tornado warning. And as you look at the storm here, the southern flank, as Cheryl was mentioning, that can sometimes be an area of concern. Rotation develop and produce a tornado. That's what we're seeing on the radar right now. In fact, as we switch over to that velocity data, Cheryl was watching it pretty closely. It doesn't look as impressive as some of the other velocity data we've seen throughout the course of the evening, but right now, as we put this in motion, we had the bright greens and reds back here